That was the weirdest review ever. We're kind of like the film.
Hello, you are listening to Off Radar, It's a Movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
I'd never really had any interest in watching it and I was proved absolutely right.
I think it's amazing. I really, really love this film.
The film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at OffRadarPodcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar. Welcome back. Hello. I didn't say hello. All right.
I keep saying all right. Sorry, Smith. I get too excited.
Right. Really crazy. Just had a thought of Fred Dimner on a roller coaster. Welcome back to Off Radar. Nigel's very, very confused. Some of these in-jokes that we do, I'm sure other people are confused.
For no one, except you two.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're having a good time. Welcome back to Off Radar. I'm James Smith, and I'm joined by James Eatock.
How do?
And Neil Brock.
Hello.
Who we call Nige. I thought you were going to do like some kind of adventure thing. Does he? No.
That famous line that he says.
Yeah, the famous line from...
I'm Nige.
No, from the film that we're about Banzai. To do. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which came out in 1984 and recommended by friend of the podcast and friend of us, Ben Tunningley, who...
B to the T.
We, the three of us, have done countless karaoke nights with him.
Yeah.
To be honest, like when I think Buckaroo Banzai, I do think Ben Tunningley is a very talented man, much like Buckaroo Banzai. So
do you really? Not because Ben Tunningley's got his own band and
exactly.
Whenever I think of Buckaroo Banzai, I think of Ben Tunningley because when I went to his place, he had a poster on the wall of Buckaroo Banzai.
Did he?
Yeah.
So he hates this film, and he's like, right, I'm going to stick it on my wall because I really dislike this film.
I'm sure he had a poster. He had the is it the Drew Struzan one? Like there's a I think it's Struzan, or if it's not.
Don't know who that is.
No idea.
Drew Struzan, the guy who did like, you know who Drew Struzan is, the guy who painted all the famous Indiana Jones posters.
Oh right. He did those.
Yeah.
And what? And he did
search
Buckaroo.
For Drew Struzan on Google right now. I don't know if he did Buckaroo Banzai. Like I said, I just made that assumption.
I can see the poster and it looks that kind of style, certainly.
Yeah.
So.
But Ben Tunningley
Ben
had the poster. So when you said, guess who recommended this to me prior to the thing, I was just like, Ben Tunningley, it had to be.
Had we seen this film before we'd done it for the podcast? This is an interesting question.
Yes. So basically,
you've seen it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So back in my uni days,
he was
just
high.
like, yeah, I probably was, and we were like, okay, Buckaroo Banzai, and everyone was like, oh, it's a precursor to Back to the Future, like there's some elements that tie into it, it's got Christopher Lloyd in, etc. Me and a mate stayed up late, bit stoned, watched Buckaroo Banzai. So I had seen it and I hadn't seen it since. So that was back in probably about 2000 and I'd say maybe 2004, and so
20-year anniversary.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Eatock?
My experience with Buckaroo Banzai was, and I can still remember to this day because I still own the issue.
Canada, 84.
No. Issue 300 of The Incredible Hulk. You open the cover page, and on the inside was like a teaser poster or a teaser image, and it just said, "The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai coming soon." And I was just like, okay. And that's all I ever knew about Buckaroo Banzai was just a picture. Like, it's a very stylized image and a very obviously captivating title. But beyond that, and beyond the poster in Tunningley's very plush apartment, that's all I knew of it. I'd forgotten most of the cast that were in this. Like, I was like, oh, RoboCop's in it, and Ellen Barkin. I was like, I forgot how much I love Ellen Barkin. I was just like, oh, Ellen Barkin's in it. And what's his name? That dude. Anyway, Smith will do the cast thing, so I'm jumping
No.
here. Had you seen it, Smith?
No, and to be honest, it's one of those films that I didn't really know.
Had you heard of it?
No, I hadn't heard of it. I knew nothing about
Wow.
it. It's not a film I've ever kind of sought out or thought of. And when I was chatting to Ben, I was working with him. He recommended it, so I was quite intrigued and knew nothing about it. So it was quite an adventure, shall we say the least.
Much like what Buckaroo Banzai and his friends go on.
And the film is...
in their jet car.
In that. And the film itself, directed by W.D. Richter. So he's
famous for
known for Invasion of the Body Snatchers in '78.
He also Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, he was a part.
He wrote Big Trouble in Little China.
He had a part in it. I think there were 2 writers. He was one of them.
Damn.
And he also wrote
as well.
Dracula, the '79 Dracula.
And Brubaker, which I watched quite recently with Robert Redford in. It's like a prison film. Which, I didn't know that. So there you
go. He's probably more known as a writer than a director. And then written...
He only directed this and Late for Dinner, apparently, which is a film I've never heard of.
I've never heard of that.
You sure that's just not an entry on Wikipedia where someone was like, I'm just doing I'm late for dinner, and accidentally just, shopping list. Late for dinner, I need milk, cheese.
The Adventure of Milk and Cheese in the 27th aisle of Sainsbury's.
And written by Earl Mac Rauch. And as you said, starring Peter Weller, who I know best definitely for RoboCop. I think most people probably do.
Robot
Cop. Ellen Barkin, who I didn't really know.
I've seen her in quite a few things, and it's just those things I forget, and then I'm like, oh, it's Ellen Barkin.
John Lithgow, who's been in loads of things.
Third Rock.
Yeah, he had a small part in Killers of the Flower Moon, which quite recently. I mean, everybody's in that. He had a small part in that.
Spoilers, Smith, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Interstellar he's in. He's obviously in The Crown.
Yes.
He plays Winston Churchill in that.
Does he?
In one of the early series. But probably best known for Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone.
Nicely done, Smith. Nicely done.
And maybe not obviously, but Jeff Goldblum is in this, who we've spoke about in The Fly and Jurassic Park, which we've reviewed. Obviously, a whole host of films. Ronald Lacey, who is best known for Raiders of the Lost Ark, who plays the melty face guy.
Who's he in this?
He's
the president of the USA.
That's him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you wouldn't know.
How is that the little German man who goes, ah?
Yeah. And then...
That's the same guy.
Very good actor. What can you say?
And you said Christopher Lloyd, who... Yeah, it's a rather bizarre cameo where...
Plays one of the aliens.
He's one of the aliens, so you don't know it's him until his...
Big Booty. Yeah. That's his name. Booty, it's Booty!
Kind of revealed later on in the film, but...
John Big Booty.
I asked you, Nige.
And also Vincent Schiavarelli as well, who also plays one of the aliens. It's like he was in Batman Returns. He's always got the very long face, and also one of the guys I love, Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown,
like Kurgan from Highlander. He's also in Shawshank. I do love a bit of Clancy Brown.
He's in Shawshank.
Clancy Brown's great.
Yeah, he's the prison guard, isn't he?
Yeah, of course. Nige, I don't know how you're going to attempt this, but I'm interested to hear it.
Good luck, Nige.
What's this film about?
It's been nice knowing you.
Right, to kind of try and explain this, imagine in like 1984 or the mid-80s, you're like 8 years old. So imagine you're like James Eatock, essentially. Think of the coolest person you can imagine when you're that 8-year-old child. Like, just run through a checklist in your head of like, what do you need? So first of all, you're like, right, he drives a jet car faster than like anything else.
Speed of sound.
Yeah, speed of sound. Right, check. So that's what we've got, right? He's extensively trained in kenjutsu, karate, and gunfighting.
Obviously.
Yeah, check on that one.
Check.
Right, he's a badass musician who's like in a cool 80s band.
Yeah.
Called like, what are they called? The Kung Fu, whatever. The Kung Fu
Pandas.
Kung Fu Pandas. I don't know. The Hong Kong Cavaliers.
Hong Kong Cavaliers.
With bandmates with names such as Rawhide, Reno, the Swede, Perfect Tommy, Flyboy, Big Norse.
Perfect Tommy is a great name, by the way.
Yeah,
I love Perfect
fantastic
Tommy.
names. Like, this is oddly specific, but yeah, check. We'll go for that on the list as well. The most important people in the world will go to this person when something goes wrong, like the president. Say, yeah, check, just for that. And then, like, what should we add as like a cherry on the top? Oh, yeah, he's like a brain surgeon. Yeah, fine, all right, he's intelligent.
Obviously.
So, you're an 8-year-old.
I'm not sure if my 8-year-old would think, oh, a brain surgeon.
Come on, you're along for the ride.
All right, fine. I'm there.
Right,
join in.
You're 8 years old. You've created this hero character. Now, what the hell do you do with him? So, how about there's a plot where, like, I don't know, you discover the 8th dimension of the universe inside solid matter, and then you kickstart this ordeal where, like, essentially your mentor's ex-partner, who's gone slightly insane, called Dr. Lizardo, played by John Lithgow, and his like alien cronies are attempting to free a race of alien dudes from inside the solid matter 8th dimension, where they've been trapped by the black lectoids of planet 10, who entrapped them in there in the first place. But not only that, if John Lithgow does succeed and manages to find his way out of this situation, these lectoids, who are generally like peaceful people, will destroy the Earth, because, you know, why not, like the end of the world and all that. And then did I mention that this hero is called Buckaroo Banzai and is played by RoboCop? And he also meets a woman, the identical twin of his ex-partner, played by Ellen Barkin, who died like years previously. And Jeff Goldblum is inexplicably dressed as a cowboy.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you've got. So what 8-year-old isn't excited about that? And that's the film. So good luck.
Is that what it was about?
I wish I had you by my side when I watched it.
Buckaroo, President's on line 1, calling about is everything okay with the alien spacecraft from Planet 10, or should he just go ahead and destroy Russia?
Tell him yes on 1 and no on 2.
The start of this film, like Nige said about it right at the beginning, the first thing I noticed at the start of this film is the car looked quite a lot like, it looked a bit like the DeLorean at first, but also, it had like what looked like the flux capacitor in it. And I was like, fuck, so this is 84. Back to the Future came out in 85. Obviously, Christopher Lloyd's in it as well. So I don't know like where Back to the Future kind of sat in.
I'm going to guess anyone involved in Back to the Future, including Christopher Lloyd, never saw this film. Yeah, you're like, that's.
I mean,
Nigel wasn't happy. Nigel, like, how dare you?
Everyone who appears in this film looks back on this film as one of the highlights of their career.
I'm sure they do, because it must have been great taking that much cocaine.
I take it, yeah, that's right. The writers of this must have just been off their heads when they wrote this. I mean, the script as a whole, I think like some of the words, I had to put the subtitles on because they were just made up loads of words as the film went on. I was like, I actually don't know what they're saying. and then the subtitles, they don't even know what they are either. So.
Well, no, the beginning of the movie, they're throwing around a lot of big words when they're talking about the science and when he's doing the brain surgery. But what I loved, and I was like, oh, so the logo comes up at the start, Buckaroo Banzai, the adventure, and then we get the text crawl, right?
Yes.
So the crawl, and I remember reading it and thinking, I thought two things. Sorry, Ben Tunningley. I thought two things this movie was, straight from the beginning. I was like, oh, it's a parody movie. Then I thought, oh no, it says he's got an astounding jet car. Oh, it's for kids. It's neither of those. So the first scene is, it's Buckaroo Banzai is flown by helicopter, having just completed
brain surgery.
Brain surgery.
I don't think we need to go
the timeline seems all over the place. No, don't worry. And he gets in his jet car, and they're like, oh, you can tell he's a rebel because he's not following the rules really, and he uses his jet car, and it's really not explained what's even going on. So I'm watching it going, right, this is like the beginning of Knight Rider, which is a very cool visual.
It is actually, isn't it?
But they actually do
They do a repeat shot of the car going over about 3 times.
But they do a really good shot of giving the impression of great speed.
Yeah.
One of the things when you get those often wide angle shots of here's the thing going across the desert, it always looks so dog slow. This actually felt like I got the impression of this guy's like is going to break the
he had to get up to 88.
Let's go 28 miles an hour. And then, he suddenly does this thing. And this laser beam shoots at this mountain. No, it guides him towards this mountain. Then he drives through this mountain. We see all this like very early 1980s CGI. We see these like ghostly things, spirits, and coming at him. And he comes out the other side, and he's all like, they're like, oh my God, he did it. He just drove through a mountain. And then there's like a press bit afterwards. But the bit that made me laugh the most in this film, and it wasn't supposed to, I don't think, is when they're doing an interview on TV and it cuts to Dr. Lizardo, played wonderfully by John Lithgow, doing a very strange accent. He sounds like
it's like an Italian accent.
Italian accent, but it's all over the place. And he does what I described as, I wrote my notes, he attaches himself to the exposition machine because for some reason he's watching his old comrade who was the one that they were the, so Dr. Lizardo and I forget the guy's name,
Dr. Toshishi Hikita.
Yeah, he watches he's watching the interview and he sees Hikita and Dr. Lizardo were the ones that first proposed the idea of being able to travel so fast past the speed of sound that you can traverse rock or anything at matter. So the really bizarre scene, Dr. Lizardo attaches himself to this device and we get a nice flashback of what happened. And it's like, I've seen Saturday morning cartoons give better reasons for a flashback because this serves no purpose to him or the plot. All it does is just show us what happened. And it's like, couldn't this have been explained by one of the characters going, like at some point when Lizardo breaks out, they go, oh, this is why. And you get that flashback. Yeah. But it's like he attaches himself to this device and then, woo, we're in the past suddenly. And it's like, oh, here I am. And then he comes out of it. And I was just like, what even is this film? And then we get one of the best lines in the movie when nothing says future like the phrase. I think it might be Perfect Tom who says, let's rock and roll. And I was like, yes. In 1984, that was dated.
The point where it starts to get even more crazy for me is yes, all of that. But then also when the aliens come up and they're basically just blokes in suits with rubber masks, like rubber alien suits. And I was like,
I like the fact. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and it's just like so on purpose, poorly done because it doesn't, like they just look like.
Is it though?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure what the intention is if they're not doing it. I don't think any of us do.
I think it's trying to be like, so what Etok's saying about the flashback, I think it's trying to be like a comic book, like a serial where it's just jumping around. And I think, like, I found it bizarre that the black lectoids of Planet 10 were just like these the same looking bloke with dreads. Yeah, like Jamaican guys. And one of them dies.
Put on the bubble wrap sunglasses.
Oh yeah, and one of them like falls and bangs his head and dies. And like the weird, isn't this like? Yeah. Did this stunt guy just die there? Because that was a very weird.
And he just goes, and then you're like, what just happened? And then like inside the pod, he just goes, John Bilbo
Baggins.
Was it? No, he says John Thingy fell on his head and now he is dead.
That's the other thing. They're all called like they're John. It's John, like a thing, and I'm like, why the fuck is everyone called John? Like they don't.
We've jumped too far. There's too many spoilers. We need to go back. We need to go back to the bloke from Breaking Bad being in this.
Oh yeah, he's like the guy who's working. The guy who played.
What's his name in Breaking Bad?
Mike.
He was in the spin-off.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, he plays Mike, and he was in like Beverly Hills Cop.
I didn't even notice him in this. Wow.
Well, no, he's a guy. He's in the mental health hospital. He's like the guy who works in there.
Oh, fuck.
He's the one who gets strangled by Dr. Lizardo.
Yeah, neck broken.
Oh, wow. Oh, man, I didn't even see that. Oh, man.
You need to go back and watch it.
That might have raised it up a point.
You're not paying attention.
And obviously, you got Christopher Lloyd. So the fact that Christopher Lloyd is quite confusing because obviously he's an alien called Big Booty for all of this film. But is it actually Christopher Lloyd in there?
Yeah. You can tell by the way the shape of the mask.
Because I didn't know he was in this film until you see his face, and I was like, oh, Christopher Lloyd's in it. I wonder if that was him earlier in the film. But yeah,
it definitely. Oh, okay, fine. And I don't think Christopher Lloyd was that famous, but like I said, like there's a lot of people in this film. A lot of them look back on this film very fondly. They had a lot of fun making it. A lot of them read the script and were like, right, I really want to do this film because the script itself was created by that guy Earl Mac Rauch.
Yeah.
The director's wife originally read the script and was a big fan of it. And then years later, W.D. Richter has become a successful screenwriter. and ends up chatting with like Irving Winkler, who's like a very famous producer director. Did
Rocky?
Rocky, for instance. I think he was involved in like Raging Bull, a bunch of other stuff.
I was just thinking of Henry Winkler there for a minute. I was like, fuck.
Well, yeah, exactly. But eventually it came around that like he had the script in his drawer, Buckaroo Banzai, the concept, the idea, and it kind of stemmed from that. And it took a long time from this original treatment to get it to a position where they could make it into a film. And yeah, it was the 80s. Like people were a bit more coked up perhaps during this time.
What made me laugh, Nigel, sorry for kind of laughing over one bit you were talking about, like the production, and for some reason my phone, even though Smith wasn't speaking, it cut to a close-up of Smith on my phone, and Smith looked like he was trying to solve the most complicated of sums, which I think is our reaction throughout this movie. It's just like
well, there's
what's going on,
I think one of my favourite scenes in the film, let's just do something like that. Penny is getting tortured, and Lithgow says, "Oh, use more honey. We need to find out what she knows." And they're just pouring honey on her like shoulders. That made me chuckle.
There's a lot of this film.
I don't know how to talk.
It's mad. Like, to be honest, like it's seen as a cult classic. It's seen as something for its time, and there's an element of this idea that it is like a boys' movie. It is kind of like those serials, like Indiana Jones. It's something where it's a crazy adventure where loads of really cool stuff happens, but if you're not in on the joke or you're not particularly enjoying it, it just seems a bunch of random stuff that isn't connected in the slightest, that makes very little sense. It was almost, a lot of people have spoken about this film as like it was written as this film where the character was established and it was almost part of a franchise. Like there's a Buckaroo Banzai fan club in the film, but the reality
is there another film
watching this film
because
was like no, there is nothing about it. No, there's not.
They're never going to commission.
There was talk about there being a sequel
because the way they like play it as the adventures.
Buckaroo will return,
and it was supposed to be like books and comic books and a series of films, but it was a commercial disaster, unfortunately. And again, it picked up this cult following afterwards, which is why it's kind of recognised as this, like the Back to the Future precursor, as I said before. The fact that Tunningley clearly is a massive fan of this film. Well, I'm assuming he is. We haven't heard this review. But the fact he had the poster on the wall, and again, it is known as this like very, very cult film that a lot of people absolutely loved. And again, it was created in this era where there weren't really films like this. Like we think about today, and I can't believe I'm going to bring up a Marvel film before E-Talk, but the idea of like these universes being created for these kind of like, not necessarily geeks, but this group of people where during the 80s, it was all about action heroes, your Arnie's, your Stallones. There wasn't really that kind of like sci-fi, like Hitchhiker's Guide in the UK, but in America, there wasn't really that sort of film. And this tried to kind of fill that void. And I think this is the closest a lot of people of that generation got to having like almost like your toys on screen, like the crazy, like I said, the 8-year-old imagining who is the ultimate hero for me. This was trying to create that film. And I just think looking back on it with a critical eye, if you haven't necessarily seen this film, you're just like, what the hell is going on? It's very difficult to follow. It's very difficult to understand the logic. And it seems like there's a lot of random set pieces stuck together.
Well, what you brought up there is I've read nothing about this movie. Like I say, my only knowledge of it was a Marvel Comics ad. And I think from what I recall, Marvel either did like a mini series where they adapted it into a comic book. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's why Marvel Comics were promoting it in their comic, was that they actually one bit, if you remember, when there's the two guys find the alien, he's holding a Marvel comic of Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah.
Do you remember that bit? Yeah. He's like, it's the latest issue of Buckaroo Banzai, which is weird because it says #1. I was like, oh, you obviously don't know how to count. The latest issue is #1. But what Nige just said there was something that I was kind of going to bring up. This movie, and it's clearly fact, what Nige said, kind of on paper, it's really, like, it probably read really strong. And it feels like watching it felt like this is a big franchise waiting to happen. Animated series, toys, comic books, sequels. Imagine like action figures of your favorite Buckaroo. But I was like, I'm seeing all this, watching this, but it felt that it had jumped ahead of itself. It hadn't given its time self to establish what it thought it was doing. It's like, here's this franchise, and it's like, wait, hang on. Maybe we start off with the comic books and maybe the toys and the cartoon. And yeah, that's very kind of corporate driven minded of me, very capitalist of like, oh, well, you know, make the toys, make the comic books, make the cartoon, then make the movie. But I think that kind of should, if they'd done it in that order or that way around, I think the movie would have worked a lot better, because it does feel like you're dropped into this universe, like Nige said, a universe that at the time was completely unheard of. And bear in mind, the same year this comes out, Ghostbusters comes out and does what this movie was trying to do without even doing it, I think. I think when Ghostbusters came out, sorry to go about
this was directly against Ghostbusters. So the 3 films that was released around this time were Ghostbusters, Temple of Doom.
Oh my goodness!
And I think the other one was like Star Trek: The Search for Spock. Like the
sorry,
Star
Buckaroo.
Trek film.
Yeah.
So it just got absolutely annihilated.
Never had a chance.
It really did.
Yeah.
We need your help. We are looking to grow Off Radar and release more and more high quality content. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pod. And why not share with your friends and loved ones?
Help me help you.
Like Nige said, it just seems to be a series of scenes that you're like...
That's the one thing I was really puzzled with, was why you wouldn't actually have a coherent story or script, because you can still do the randomness, you can still do the craziness, you can still have like the honey pouring over Penny and her cry.
You love the
honey scene. You know, the music scene where like he singles her out and she's about to kill herself. I mean, you could probably still have all of the scenes, but you might want to just give it some thought about how to structure this into something that makes sense for the viewer, so that afterwards they're not like, what the fuck, how are we going to talk about this on a podcast?
One of my notes, literally, I've got like, I'll just read out 3 of the notes.
The 3 of your 4 notes.
In any order, much
No, this is, I could literally read it in any order, that would make more sense. I've got, so this is like, right, so this is what I was writing. You can tell I didn't tidy up these notes because I knew where I was going with this. But I wrote, egg lands, one falls out, another escapes. Then we learn there's something sitting inside, ? Little kid saves him. And then my next note, I'm not joking.
The little kid was so
isn't
fucking random.
It's just so random. But this isn't me trying to be facetious. But my next note is,
what the fuck?
What is this film supposed to be? ? It's literally what. And the one thing I did like about this movie, hang on, we've got to get there. So they're talking about, basically, they tie it in to a very famous radio play that Orson Welles did.
They do, yeah.
This I thought was really good, and I was like, I'm in, because I watched. I first heard about the broadcast of War of the Worlds with I don't know. I think it's I forget what the film is called. There's a film that recreates the radio play. It's got like Casey Kasem in and a few others. I remember seeing it in like maybe the late 80s, early 90s. And it's really good because they basically recreate the radio broadcast and how people started going crazy. Wow. And the film ends really dramatically because it says, people had been under the impression that evil had arrived on Earth, and yet a new evil was on the way. And then you hear Hitler's voice over the end, as the film fades back. And I was like, that's such a great ending to a film based on this real event. So in this, they talk about the radio play wasn't necessarily just a radio play. It was actually like, and it is pretty cool. It was like Orson Welles was warning everyone that the aliens have landed in this area. The Johns, and they all took the pseudonym John something, John Big Booty. There's all these other funny ones as well. Yeah, that is a brilliant scene at the end when they're getting into their ship and they're about to escape. Yeah. And he's like, John Big Booty. And he's like, Big Booty, Tay. And he just turns around and shoots him. And he's just like, that made me laugh out loud. And I was like, I don't know. It's one of those things in these films, like you get the impression that the villains are having much more fun in their roles than the
I think
bland cast of heroes.
John Lithgow is probably the best thing in this film. Actually, he's so good as this
over the top and
crazy professor. That something
Saturday morning cartoon villain.
What you would see.
I'll get you next time, Buckaroo Banzai.
Like that. But yeah, no, he's really good. Jeff Goldblum is basically Jeff Goldblum playing that same character again. He's like, I'm going to be a really crazed character, talk really fast and really nervous, but actually I'm going to dress like Woody from Toy Story. And then obviously Peter Weller. He's fine.
That's the thing, like Peter Weller, like you can imagine if they made this film today, they'd have like a Ryan Reynolds or someone that is like larger than life as this role. Peter Weller is someone who's quite understated, quite serious, really weird. Not that bombastic, and it's like, okay. And I can see
why he played RoboCop.
But they wanted someone who could look both heroic and then have kind of like grease over their face, like, but then also project the intelligence of like a neurosurgeon or an inventor. I totally understand. But they also wanted someone who was a little bit more unknown, so they could build the character around. They could build, rather than just say, oh, it's blah 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 playing Buckaroo Banzai. It's like, no, this person is Buckaroo Banzai.
But he's just got no real charisma. So it just like,
I tell you what, he's got no screen presence. When he's on screen, I found myself looking at what's his name, Perfect Tommy. I thought Perfect Tommy was like more, he had the 1980s blonde hair and he was always quite charming, and the ladies clearly like Perfect Tommy. I found Ellen Barkin more scene.
Oh, definitely. She's actually really good in this.
She's
role.
Great. She's hilarious. Like there's the bit when they're doing the press conference and she starts talking like she knows all this stuff about atoms, and I'm like, where did that part of the character come from? Is it like it's just never explained? She just gets into this a little bit of science, and she goes, "Oh, at least that's why I'm hearing it." And it's what is this film? And one of the guys gets shot, and I think Jeff Goldblum says doesn't look good. The next scene, the guy's fine. He's got his arm in a sling. It's like, what?
And then there's another guy, the mechanic, who just gets shot and he dies, and then
he dies. Yeah, from out the mouth.
Yeah, but then the Kurgan, he gets it as well. He gets shot by it, and they're like, "Oh, there's no cure for this." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
It's just like he dies. He gives a little speech. And he goes like, I forget what he says, and I was just like, okay. And then the little kid, because that's the part where I was like, they're really trying to establish something bigger than the film here with the membership club. So you had everyone on this planet Earth is aware of Buckaroo Banzai. And they have like blue team members and gold team members and red team members, all these kind of normal everyday people that are part of this, obviously trained, but part of Buckaroo Banzai's greater what do you call it, like crew or team,
like the Avengers.
It's like Avengers together assemble, and it's but it was really weird because it's just like a dad flying a helicopter and a little kid. That was weird. At one point he's running away from a truck, Peter Weller, and then this ladder just drops in front of the helicopter, and he just kind of without question gets on it. And I understand why. It's just run left or right if there's a truck chasing you on a street. But it was I just found myself numerous times in this film going, what is, like, genuinely, it sounds like we're taking the piss, but just like, what is going on?
It is hard to follow. Like I'm the only one here who's seen it twice, albeit the first time I tried to watch it, I didn't make it to the end because we were too stoned. We were just like,
surely that was a better experience,
and we stopped watching.
That's what I would assume.
Well, I can't remember that much about it, if I'm being totally honest. But watching it again, I followed the plot, but it was, to an extent, it was nonsensical. But the whole point behind the aliens and everything else, and it was hard to get through. But I mean, at the time when it was released, it wasn't sort of fantastically received critically, but like even like Pauline Kael, who's like a very well-known famous reviewer from that era, was like, the sense of fun kind of carried me through it. And again, as I said, like a lot of the cast really enjoyed it, that sense of fun.
I was reading Robert Ebert's review of it today, and Robert Ebert's review. I was reading Robert Ebert's review of it today, and he absolutely loves this film.
But that's the thing. I feel like there's this sense of fun that a lot of people connect with, and I don't think necessarily, by the sounds of it, that we did. And it's the sort of film that is very, very much Marmite. There are people that will defend this film to an inch of their life, kind of thing, like it's the best thing ever made, and there's others that just absolutely hate it. I think it's rare to find people that are somewhere in the middle. Like, it's not that kind of film. You either love it or you hate it. It's one of those. And I think there are a lot of critical people that a lot of film critics, I should say, that did enjoy this film a lot, and there's some that did not. And I
was going to say, the weirdest thing about this film is the one scene I think I've only ever seen, like, when you're kind of randomly seeing stuff on, because I remember one of the things I do remember is about, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, I used to listen to Kevin Smith's podcast, and he had been given, and he announced it like on his podcast. He was like, "Okay, guys, big announcement time. I've been commissioned by Netflix to do a Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai series." And it's like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." So I didn't search for it because I was aware of, like I say, vaguely aware of what it was. But the one thing I always stumbled upon whenever I'd kind of maybe search for something or just go, not actively, it's hard to explain. I was sort of like stumble upon it, news about Kevin Smith doing this film. It would always be, the footage was always the end credit sequence of them walking in the LA River.
It's really well known. It's been like homaged and like I think like Saturday Night, like Night Live did like a piss take.
Because it's both silly, but it's awesome, and it's Saturday morning cartoonish, and it's like a wonderful amount of things where I was just like, I found myself smiling at that scene. Probably the most.
Even if you watch the trailer, it's pretty much that scene for the.
Oh, is that the trailer?
Well, just to clarify for people listening, so essentially it's them in one of those like Californian big.
It's the LA River.
The LA River, yeah. It's like all the actors basically just walking along, all the Buckaroo Banzai crew, I think, that are just walking down there, like listening to music. Yeah, and it's like all the people that have died in the film. So it's like, oh, it's just everyone's there. Like Clancy Brown shows up again, and
it's like the end of a show, isn't it? Like you go to the theatre, but they do this little as they walk. They do like a little dance, like a little kind of improvised dance.
Oh yeah, they did
like a little shimmy. Oh, Jeff.
When they actually filmed that as well, they didn't have the song they were going to use, so they used like Billy Joel's like Uptown Girl, and apparently that synced perfectly to the song that they actually did use. So,
okay.
When it got released, so it cost roughly 17 million, which at the time wasn't an inconsequential amount of money, but only made like 6.3 million back. And obviously it came out against those 3 films I mentioned earlier, and it kind of got a bit crushed and a bit squeezed out. It only made 620k on its first weekend before making back less than half of its production cost. And that, like, this sort of leads into like Nigel's trivia, but they did think they were gonna, at the end of the film, you might see that they say there's, watch out for the upcoming film, Buckaroo Banzai versus the World Crime League. And this was the real title of the film that Sherwood Studios planned to make if it had been successful. The problem was the film wasn't successful. It was a box office bomb, and the studio that produced it, Sherwood Studios, actually went bankrupt off the back of it. But because it was released on like video and cable and Betamax and everything else, it did become a cult favourite. Similar, people sort of said it was quite similar to the way like Mad Max, when that was first released, was released more or less to obscurity, then eventually picked up a cult following and spawned 2 future sequels. The complication came that because of the bankruptcy and everything else, no other studio could pick up the rights to it that easily. And even MGM eventually got it, and they were the ones who worked with Kevin Smith to potentially do a TV series, but that ended up, they got sued and it was just a nightmare. But they had to go through so much red tape even to get it to release on DVD back in the era when DVDs were coming out, and only eventually in 2021 was a novel, Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League, ever released. So it took that long, 1984 to 2021, for them to get through the legal red tape to release anything. And there was Kevin Smith's series that they were going to do in 2016. It was like MGM and it was Amazon, not Netflix. But he left after there was a lawsuit between MGM and the original creators. But then in 1998, Fox tried to do one, an animated short called Buckaroo Banzai Ancient Secrets and New Mysteries, but it just wasn't picked up. It just died on its arse. So as much as there was like that kind of love for it, it does seem like it was very niche and just didn't find necessarily. I can imagine
like a screening of this at the Prince Charles or somewhere similar would do
it's got
well.
An audience, definitely, but maybe not big enough.
I totally understand.
Yeah, it's like a convoy. So let's get a rubber duck and. So in the original script, Buckaroo was supposed to have an arch enemy called Hanoi Zan, who was never seen but was referenced by Buckaroo and the other characters, and they had to scrub all the dialogue and all the scenes that actually referenced him when they did the theatrical release, but it is on the DVD. Now, he was supposed to be the mysterious head of the crime syndicate, aforementioned World Crime League, and was also the man who murdered Buckaroo's parents and his wife Peggy, obviously Ellen Barkin's
clone.
Doppelganger. So, and also Jamie Lee Curtis was cast as Buckaroo Banzai's mum and did appear in a flashback, which was also cut out of the film.
Oh, right. I was going to say, I don't remember that,
Yeah, well, in the most recent DVD release, there's a widescreen shot Well, there's a scene for this, but also in a widescreen shot of when he's in the jet car on the dashboard, there's a photo of Jamie Lee Curtis, which is
obviously.
Weird. But this was a film that was like really had issues during the production. So the original DOP for this was John Cronenworth, who was famous for basically shooting Blade Runner. And they wanted someone in who could do this film like in real rich colour and texture, which he was specifically known for. However, several weeks into filming, the producer, David Bagelman, had him replaced by a guy called Fred Conenkamp against the wishes of the crew, the director, everyone, because he wanted the film to have a campy, flat visual appearance. Which the filmmakers
what a great idea!
Like the only shots, there's a few scenes like the club scene, the music scene, the nightclub scene. That was shot by the guy who did Blade Runner, but the rest of it wasn't. And you can really
the
tell
scenes
the
with
difference.
depth.
Like it's and they even said like when they came to edit it, there was like too many wide shots. There was such a limited amount of shots that it really was edited together in such a bizarre way.
Yeah,
but
you can see that in the final production. It's just flat is the best way to describe it at times. It's just. It doesn't feel at times like a Hollywood film. It feels like a Hallmark TV movie masquerading as like a Hollywood film.
But I think the most like obvious way of saying there was production issues, there's a scene in the movie, and again there's a few scenes that don't make much sense, but when Reno and New Jersey, so Jeff Goldblum's character, go through a room and there's a watermelon in a machine.
The watermelon, yeah.
What was really out of place? And Reno says, I'll explain it later, never does. Apparently, if you listen to the Blu-ray audio commentary, the filmmakers explained they had such a confrontational relationship with one of the producers already. Like when they stopped receiving notes from that producer in production, they decided to put this watermelon in with no reference to it anywhere in the script, just randomly in this scene. And when they got no questions about it from the producers, they were like, no one's watching the dailies anymore, let's just make the film however we want to do, keep it within budget, and no one's going to give us notes or give us criticism.
That is brilliant.
But then they just were like, no, they shoot that scene, they're like, we'll leave that in anyway. And it's like, what? You did it as a test for the production team, but you thought, we'll just leave it in because it's funny, it's zany, and it's just like,
that's so
that
weird.
Is weird.
Because I was just like, what is that?
In my wedding pictures, if you look at my wedding pictures, there's a watermelon in quite a lot of them because my brother-in-law bought us a watermelon as our wedding present. So there you go.
Did he?
Yeah.
No way.
Maybe he's a bit like Buckaroo Banzai fan, and he's never.
He did it. He did it with both, Flizzy and her sister as well. Put a watermelon on the table. I don't know. It's a weird thing he does sometimes like that. So, if you look at Bison.
Bison.
So if you look at,
he's probably listening to this, being like,
so if you look at the pictures, the silly pictures we did with all the hats. Yeah. There's a watermelon in half of them, and you're probably holding it. I'll send it over later.
What did I do with the watermelon? Oh, how strange.
But anyway.
And then my last bit of trivia before we go into the review.
Smith's wedding trivia there.
I'm also interested in Tunningley's review. But Peter Weller was, of course, cast as Buckaroo Banzai. But
who could have been it?
Two other quite well-known names could have been
Robin Williams
and Robbie Williams were the two people. The two people were Tom Hanks, who we've obviously mentioned previously on this pod, and Michael Keaton. Wow. So would they have given a ninth dimension?
Well, they would have given
who knows?
A slightly better performance to any character, I think. But yeah, harsh but fair. Ben Tunningley.
Right, Tunningley. What have you
I haven't read this. He's just sent this through.
Mr. T.
This is what he says. He starts right off with the rating. It's a delightful 8, and with the nostalgia factor, it becomes a sparkling 9. An extraordinary cast of soon-to-be stars and wonderful character actors. Eminently quotable dialogue. Laugh while you can, monkey boy. Wherever you go, there you are. So what? Big deal. I mean, these are quotes that I do not know, but anyway,
I'm guessing
they're in the movie. I remember the monkey boy stuff.
The character name's perfect. Tommy, New Jersey. Great world building. Why, of course, he's a particle I can't say the word.
Sorry, Smith, how did you just read that? Did you say the names are perfect? Tommy is perfect. Tommy.
Shit, yeah.
No, that's brilliant. I want you to always keep that in.
You're not re-recording.
Tunningley's made it as confusing as the film. The character names: Perfect Tommy, New Jersey, great world building. Why, of course, he's a particle I can't say the word. Physicist, neurosurgeon who leads a rock band and has a comic series and a global network of helpers. A dense and rich background that rewards every repeat viewing. Why is that watermelon there? Orson Welles. Orson Welles' War of the Worlds solved, and the pièce de résistance, that end title sequence. I'm sorry,
you're destroying.
I'm so tired. Sorry, Ben. For that alone, it's a masterpiece, and Wes Anderson stole it along with Jeff Goldblum for The Life Aquatic. Wow, I've never seen that film. So, do they do that in a Wes Anderson film?
Nigel, you've seen.
I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen The Life Aquatic, so I need to go back and check
Interesting.
that out.
And then he says, God, I love this film. Enjoy podding. I'm so glad you guys are doing it, and I can't wait to listen. Say hi to those two from me. I don't know if he meant me to read that out, but there you go. Ben.
Oh, sorry,
Ben,
we love you.
Thank you so much for recommending this. Now comes the fun bit. What do we think of this film? Who wants to start? Maybe you want me to start?
Yes,
fuck.
Yeah.
Ben,
it's like we're recording this just for Tunningley.
I feel like other people that are listening are probably going to be listening because they're also fans of this film, because I don't think our regular listeners are going to be listening to this, because I'm really surprised if you've seen it. I had no idea what this film was about, and I still don't have any idea of what this film is about. It's just so bloody bonkers, but I really wish it had some story that would carry me through it. I found it a real struggle. Halfway through this film, I had to stop. And I had to go back and watch it on the second viewing because I just couldn't take doing it all at once, which is...
You watched this 1.5 times?
I watched it from the same point, but, you know... I watched half,
you went back.
and then half again. I don't think I could do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a complete mess. I don't really know how to sum up this film. I couldn't really say many great things about it. The music, we haven't talked about the music. The music's bloody awful. It's so naff.
We haven't talked about the music. It's bloody awful. Right.
That's all we need to say about that. Is it written? I don't know if it's written. I think it's just like spliced together a load of scenes.
Is it written?
Like, I take it like they were all on drugs, because I literally have no clue what this film is about. It's so bad. I'm sorry, but people who like this film, normally when there's a bad film, normally I say I get it, but I just don't. I really don't get why you would this film. I get it's so bad that it's good. Maybe, I don't know. Is it? Not for me. 3 out of 10. Who's next?
Etok is...
Oh, I'll do it. So Ben Tunningley, I love the fact you're a big fan of Indiana Jones, as are we. I love the fact you took me to my first ever Bruce Springsteen concert. Gave me a free ticket.
Wow.
Went to see him. He messaged me. I was in London. I was living in London at the time. And he said, he goes, what are you up to this afternoon? I was like, well, not much actually. And he was like, do you fancy going to see Springsteen at the Emirates?
Wow.
I was like, okay.
Come see the boss.
See the boss.
Yeah, so I got to see the boss, like, do all
That's
of his
amazing.
hits. And I was just like, it was brilliant. I was like, I wouldn't profess to know a lot about Bruce Springsteen, but I was like, oh man, this is just incredible. Because the atmosphere of a Springsteen concert as well. It was like,
so what did you give the Springsteen concert out of 10?
So I'd give out of 10, I'd give it like a 9.5. I can't go 10. Public Enemy, I'd give a 10 to. That was a great concert. But yeah, Indiana Jones, it's a great series. And Tunningley has that poster on his wall as well. What else? Tunningley's apartment in Southwark was really nice.
This is
he always had a great selection.
Tunningley apology podcast.
He always had a great selection of food as well. Like, because I'd crash with him sometimes when I wasn't living in London at the time, and I'd head there, and he'd have like what I loved about Ben's place was it was minimalism. So cupboards would appear as if from nowhere. Buckaroo Banzai though, I love you, Ben, but I just like Smith. I just don't get this. And like, I think Smith, you hit the nail on the head perfectly. Usually with films, you can say, "Oh, I get why this is." The Room, for example.
Yeah.
The Room is a very bad film, but it's a cult classic, and I can watch that and go, "This is terrible," but I get why people love it because it's it's involved and stuff, and just so bad. This is just. I don't get why people like this at all in the slightest. It's just a random sequence of nothing, and but there's something there. There's like a little bit of something so very special that if they had somehow nurtured, and like I say, if this had maybe started off as a toy line comic book cartoon series or something where you build to this, it's almost like this film drops you in the universe and goes,
good luck.
What do you think of all these characters? Literally. It's like, where's my, like, it pushes you out of an airplane and says, good luck, where's my parachute?
It goes, you're in the 8th dimension or 9th or 10th or whatever world you're in. Just see what happens.
It is dimension, yeah. But yeah, I did not enjoy this film in the slightest. I suppose the aliens were funny, like you say, Lithgow was good, but yeah, I'm going to give it like a 2 out of 10.
Wow.
I never want to see this film again, or even Ben, if never speak to me about this film.
Wow. Wow.
Nige, 10 out of 10.
So
I'm actually going to give it like a 7.
So for me, like I said, I watched this in my uni days, or I tried to watch it, and I struggled to get through it, much like Smith did in his recent experience. So going back into this, I was worried that it was going to be a slog, it was going to be difficult. And there were elements of that, definitely. I think I actually really enjoyed the opening bit with the jet car. I thought it built up really nicely. Like there was this sense of anticipation, what was going on. I wanted to know what was going on. The fact he comes back and there's like the brain or whatever it is attached to the bottom of the car, I was intrigued. And then it just goes crazy. Like, as you say, it's very disjointed. The fact they're in a band, I was like, what? They're in a band? They've got a tour bus? What the fuck is going on? And
they have a tour bus. I forgot about the tour bus.
It's a lot of confusing aspects, but there are interesting moments. I really like Clancy Brown's character in this. I think I'm not like, I don't know, it's confusing, there's weirdness going on, but there are some moments of like levity, like amusing, like little lines that you can tell. And like Etok, you were saying, like almost like there's like the green shoots of something there. And
yes,
I understand why people love this film, and I think we just watched it at completely the wrong time, and maybe we wouldn't have got it whenever we watched it. But I do think there's a few elements of this film that brings a little bit of charm and that cult factor, and it was interesting, but it wasn't good.
Give me the time codes, Nigel, and I can watch them.
Just give me the clips on YouTube. That's all I need.
But there was elements of this I liked. I quite liked the little kid and his dad with like the helicopter. It was almost like a Gary Cole type weird bit.
It's literally nothing there. I like the kid and his dad and the helicopter.
There were bits
that
I did
amazing
quite
character
enjoy in this
arc.
film. Like there were elements, but it was just too random for me. I didn't enjoy it. I wouldn't go back and watch it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I'm probably gonna give it a 4 because
one of those points is for the kid, the helicopter, and the dad, isn't it?
4 out of 10. And guys, are you Buckaroo Banzai fans? Email us on whatever our email is. OffRadarPod.
Tell us what your favourite scene is.
gmail.com.
Is it the scene with the kid and the dad on the helicopter?
Tweet us.
I thought it would charm it. I liked it.
No, I'm joking.
The fact he was so excited and enthusiastic to be around Buckaroo Banzai, it made me feel like maybe I want to be around Buckaroo Banzai.
Do you fancy sending us a film to review, or letting us know your thoughts on a film that we have discussed? All of your comments will be read out in our end of season leaderboard episode. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at offradarpodcast. Message us on Facebook. All links and info in the description down below.
Do it! Do it!